It's simple, really. Great stories with a good cup of tea. It's the Tea with Mike show. Tea with Mike fans, on this episode of the show, Jonathan stops by. Just think about this for a second. Through one thing, you can learn many things. Find out what I mean on this episode of the show, so grab a cup of tea, sit back, and enjoy. Alright guys, welcome to another episode of the Tea with Mike show. Joining me for this one is Jonathan. Welcome to Tea with Mike, Jonathan.
Hey Mike, thank you for having me.
No worries. So again, welcome to the show. Let's start it off really easy. What do you call home?
Where do I call home? So I call home Burlington, Vermont. But as I was just explaining to you, I relocated to St. Louis for the next 2.5 months as my girlfriend is doing a rotation at a hospital here. I originally grew up in Philadelphia and I went to college in Vermont. I stayed there, so I'm excited to see a different part of the country. Obviously, we traveled safely and, use masks and things like that. But, right now, I guess home is the hotel in St. Louis.
So yeah, it's super crazy. So do you want to start by kind of telling everyone a little snapshot and a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jonathan Torrey. People call me John. I'm a senior product manager at an automotive technology company called Dealer.com. So I work in advertising, and my primary goal is to develop products that help dealerships sell more cars profitably. And so I own our video advertising products. So, a day-to-day basis, I work with engineering to really just define, hey, this is what we're trying to solve. These are the problems. These are the client segments that we're trying to reach. I help educate sales. I troubleshoot problems. I build marketing decks. I build go-to-marketing plans. It's almost like being an entrepreneur, I guess you could call it, at a large company.
Awesome. So let's kind of go back to the beginning. What were some of your kind of favorite subjects in school?
Favorite subject in school. So I was an economics major. I remember I took an economics class in high school and I was very fascinated by it. I originally entered UVM as a business major. I switched to, I can't even remember, but it was something to do with like physical fitness, like something that related, nutrition maybe it was. And then eventually I switched to economics, and I just really enjoy understanding behaviors and what drives them. And I think part of it's understanding markets and what drives those, but effectively it boils down to supply and demand, and that, scarcity creates certain behavioral trends, and just being able to match those to strategies for business. And for me, particularly advertising, marketing, and products just all tied together. So I would say that, but I also enjoyed writing. I loved English classes. I wasn't the best writer in high school or college, but I always liked it. So.
Awesome. And then, so was economics in school, was it a class that everybody took, or was it an optional class?
Yep. So it was an optional class. So again, it was my major. So I took a bunch of econ courses. I would say econometrics was my favorite course of all time. It was the most difficult economics class that I had ever taken, with one of the most difficult professors, but I stuck through it. And, quick story about that. The year before, I had sort of taken the intro to econometrics, and that's a statistical class that teases out causation. So something happens, there's a result, can we prove that it caused it? And you do that through data statistical analysis. And I ended up with a C, I think it was, in Econ 170. And a couple of my friends were econ majors. They got A's, and I just thought, cut out for this, right? And I took econometrics, and after the first couple classes, I thought, boy, this is really tough. And the friends that got A's in the previous courses ended up dropping out. I stuck with it. I got an A in the course, and Professor Bill Gibson really helped me to write a paper that looked at the effects of alcohol on GPA, and we found a significant correlation between those two things by way of skipping class. So the more that you consumed alcohol, the more classes you skipped, your GPA goes down. But that paper helped me to get a position at a startup that did marketing that used data analysis. So I'm forever grateful for sticking through that challenge and for that specific class.
Interesting. It's quite a fascinating journey, kind of starting on like one path, but then it's all the different scenarios have helped steer you a different way. So that's quite fascinating. So, do you want to dive a little deeper into some of the hard and soft skills that you learned at university?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's one in particular. I think this would be my second favorite class, was a public speaking class. And it's something, if you asked anybody who knew me in high school and they said John Torrey is a really great public speaker, they'd look at you with seriously. It's something that always made me nervous. I mean, even in college, a couple of my friends from school would poke fun at me a little bit about my public speaking skills, but I took this course. I loved it. I still get nervous when I get up in front of a room full of people, but this skill, yep, 100%. But this is a skill that's now transformed my career. Not only during my day job, because I can get up in front of big audiences, of course, when we were back in the office, and I would present quite often, but I have traveled the country presenting to brands like Volvo, Subaru, Audi, businesses like that. And I really attribute it to taking that public speaking course. And here I am with you doing an interview. I have my own podcast. It's public speaking, right? It's communication, it's things like that. So, when it comes down to it, I really think soft skills, public speaking was a really big one for me. When it comes to hard skills, I think statistical analysis, regression analysis really made a difference. Because as marketers, or really whenever you're going to make any kind of decision, you know that there's going to be certain inputs and you want to anticipate an output. So If we make this decision about the product, are we going to increase sales? And there's a lot more to it. You can't just do the hard stuff. There's soft things that go into that. But if you don't have that element of understanding statistical analysis, I think that you'll struggle a little bit. So I would say that would be the soft skill and the hard skill that I would call back to.
Cool. So you're really saying that you need to understand the stats and the data to help drive a kind of a business decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. So what are some of the challenges that you've kind of faced along the way, right? Especially at the beginning, like transitioning out of university and then into the startup?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I think for me, a consistent theme is just, what is my passion and what is my purpose? I still remember in high school, we took a quiz that would help us determine our major. And I was interested in so many things that it couldn't spit out a result. And I remember the college counselor at the time called me hyper choosy. And it's something, because I was just so interested in so many different things. And for the longest time, I would fight that. I thought it wasn't natural. I thought I needed to focus on one thing. But looking back, I graduated in 2011, so 9 years out of university. The biggest thing that I learned is that you need to embrace that and try a bunch of different things. I am a product manager, but I also write on Medium. I host a podcast. I invest in sports cards. You just have to pursue. If I could go back and tell myself, like, what should you do differently? It's just embrace the fact that you're at a startup and I was programming, doing account management, doing marketing, sales. Am I back?
So you're doing product, lots of different things, product management, account sales, etc.
Yep.
You're doing a bit of everything.
Yep, doing a bit of everything, and it just, to me, it concerned me, just because I thought that, well, I'm at a startup. If I want to go to a real company, I need to have a job title, I need to have a function, I need to be very specific. But looking back on my career, I mean, and where I'm going, I think it was really great to have that broad brush of experiences.
Awesome. And then so in your bio, you say that you have a drive to learn and improve, and you're not afraid to take risks. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that for the audience? Yeah. And how that shaped some of maybe the personal decisions you made and professional decisions?
Sure, absolutely. So when it comes to learning, when I was done school, I thought, okay, I'm done with the classes. I can just kind of go into this new world, right? The professional world. And what I quickly found out, again, being in multiple roles at a startup, there's no one there that you can say, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? I mean, there are three of us trying to build a business. And so I learned rather quickly how to be resourceful, how to learn on my own, taking courses on edX, taking courses on Coursera, listening to podcasts, reading articles. At that time, my boss was sending me videos from Gary Vaynerchuk.
Right.
And just to educate, to learn. And that was kind of because what we were doing is social media marketing. This is 2009, 2010, 2011.
Right, so social media was a lot newer.
It was
the average person.
No one had figured it out.
Right.
And that's the world I stepped into. Is there's no real answer. You have to go. It's partially going and doing it, figuring out where you can learn it or learn enough to go try it yourself. And that's the biggest thing that I realized today in the workplace is so many people are afraid to figure it out themselves. So as a product manager, I have a very deep expertise in video advertising, other channels, how our products work, how to sell it, how to market it, how to service it, all these things. And I noticed that people come to me a lot of the times with questions they can answer themselves. So if I were to insert a piece of advice to young people, come to me with solutions, not problems. Always try to solve it first. And so that has really guided me in my career, and I just continue to do it. I continue to listen to the podcast. I took a product management course on Coursera, and then I continue to just execute. And I did some eBay flipping. That taught me negotiation, pricing, merchandising. When I stepped into my role, I didn't have any experience doing video advertising. So what did I do? I went into Google Ads, I created an account, and I started doing video advertising for my podcast so that I could learn it myself. And I think if you do that and you get that hands-on experience and pair it with the thought leaders, things like that, you're going to stand out head and shoulders above everybody else.
So you can say, I'm summarizing a little bit. So you're saying that you need to really be invested into yourself, into self-learning and doing your own personal research to enhance your skills to create your own opportunities.
I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's one part invest in yourself, invest in learning opportunities, but the other part is go execute. And the challenge that I had for a long time at the beginning, now I was executing in my roles during the day, right, my day job. But what I learned rather quickly, actually in the past 2 years, is doing. When you pair that learning with the doing, it makes for a much better learning experience, and you really progress your career tangibly. And a lot of the time, and I wrote an article about this on Medium, but you don't need to start the next Instagram to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
I've literally
Instagram.
What's that?
There's only one Instagram.
Only one Instagram, right? And I started going to garage sales, buying items, selling them on eBay. That was a mini entrepreneurship that taught me a ton about business. So I think just look for the practicality and where you can do. Because I could read about doing pull-ups all day, but it's not going to make me any stronger. You have to actually go and do it.
Do the pull-ups.
Value in learning the right form. So yeah.
Interesting. So that leads me to ask you, were you always like this growing up? Were you quite curious as a child, or is it something that you've developed more as you've got a little older and become an adult?
I love that question because I do love reflecting on my childhood, because I think it can be a gold mine for what you're truly passionate and interested in. The answer is yes. I was always like that. I never realized it. So I remember, in high school specifically, when I was 16 years old, I remember doing so much research about how Tobey Maguire transformed himself for the role in Spider-Man. So he got all cut up, right? He changed his diet, exercise routine. And I just became so fascinated to learn from others. Like, what are the people in the top of their field doing, and how could I apply that to my own life? But even as a young kid, I remember taking apart a scooter that I had just because I wanted to see how it works. So it was very hands-on, very curious, very much just exploring and learning and taking it in.
Also, and so do you come from a family that's hands-on and curious and innovative, or is it just you different?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think I don't fully know the answer. I know, my mother, she was a nurse for about 40 years. And so, I mean, that's a very hands-on, you have to be curious, you have to be innovative. And, she really succeeded in those roles, and she takes on a lot. So I would say definitely there. But then, my dad, he changed career paths a couple of different times pursuing his interests. And, he runs a mental health clinic down in Philadelphia. So I think there's certainly elements of it, but it's always fascinating when you try to trace back where it necessarily comes from. I probably couldn't put my finger on it, but I could just say generally, I've always been
a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Because at the end of the day, you could have all the talent in the world, like you could be wired perfectly, but you still have to execute, right?
You have to execute, and people need to know what you want to do and who you are. Because if they don't know that you're interested in X, Y, or Z, even though you're the best programmer in the world, marketer, if you don't tell people or find a way to communicate, you're not going to get connected with the right opportunities.
And that's even kind of more challenging in today's world because there's so much noise and what's the word I'm looking for? Fluff and duff, I guess.
Yeah.
You've got to get through to stand out, right?
Yep. It's hard to get someone's attention. It's hard and it's easy. It comes back to the execution. I do spend a lot of my time when I am located in Vermont going back to UVM, University of Vermont, to speak to students. And a lot of them, I give a playbook to them, and I made a podcast on it. I had a student come on. I gave her my playbook. She executed. She got a great job. She's loving it. She had a bunch of interviews. This was all during COVID. I mean, this was this spring. We recorded it in real time, but so many of them don't execute. And I think it also matters what level you are in your career. I think it does get harder as you progress and get older to stand out, to do things differently. And you just have to keep being creative, keep thinking outside the box. And like you said, you just got to keep executing.
Fantastic. And so then the risks that you take, are they calculated risks?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think of the sports cards, again, that's something I saw Gary Vaynerchuk talking about it, but I took 40, 50, 60 hours to really learn about it. I used to collect cards when I was a kid. I would go to flea markets. I would buy cards. I'd negotiate. I loved it. And just going back to the things that you love as a child, again, I really think that can unlock some insight into what it is that you want to do in the future. But I got into these sports cards, and when you're spending money on sports cards and everybody else around you is saying, hey, that's kind of dumb, or that's kind of, why are you spending your money on that? How much did you spend? They criticize you. Part of it's being unconventionally right. I was just listening to a podcast. Andy Ratchliff, who coined the term product market fit, talks about how doing something extraordinary means that you have to be non-consensus, but right. Everyone else has to disagree with you, and you have to make that bet and put your money where your mouth is. And so the one lesson I've learned is I wish I spent more and bought more. I wish I trusted myself, because the cards I had have gone up in value, and I was on the money. I just wish I trusted. So I think they're calculated, but I also think I probably could have done a little more. But in hindsight, obviously, knowing what happened, it changes the game. So
fantastic. And then so in your bio, you put a heavy emphasis on client focus and the importance of collaboration. So do you want to talk a little bit about why that's important to you, and how do you strive to maintain that almost like philosophy and things that you hold close to you?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the curiosity. I'm always curious about people, what makes them tick, why they do certain things. And then when it comes to their businesses, right? Because again, my job is to build advertising products that help our clients get attention from consumers, right? And ultimately sell cars. And so I think taking a little bit of a personal stake in that when you're in those meetings matters a lot, when you care and you really want to understand some person and their business. And I think that it's just so relevant. If I'm trying to solve your problem, but I don't quite understand the problem, I'm not going to do a very good job.
Right.
And I always tell our salespeople this. You have to find what we like to call the black swan. What is that unknown thing that the person isn't saying, not necessarily because they don't notice, or not necessarily because they want to keep it from you, but because they don't know to say it.
Right.
And there's a lot of different examples of that, but this is from Chris Voss's book on negotiation. See, this is where the learning comes in, right? I'm retaining these things. He gives an example if you're trying to sell software to an accountant, but they have a big deadline to implement some other software project, and they just tell you no, they're not going to tell you about the other software project because they don't think of it. And so if you ask the right questions and you really listen, it's amazing what problems you can solve and what you can do for a business, personal relationships, all of those things. And I just love people. I do. And that's why I like to connect. And that's how I do that through my job. And it ends up benefiting everybody because I build the right products to solve the right problems.
Right. And then all the skills that you learn in your day job, like, help you on all your own personal projects too, right?
That's the thing. I mean, doing a podcast, as you know, you have to be able to ask people the right questions, listen, engage, summarize things back. When I write articles on Medium, having a fundamental understanding of what are the problems that people need solved that they want to read about how to do that. I wrote about the best cold email that I've ever received, and I broke everything down of exactly why it worked. And that was an overwhelmingly popular article because it solved the problem. Right. And I understood the problem existed.
Also, I was actually, maybe it was probably on LinkedIn, but I was reading some of the articles that you wrote on how you took up Gary's like content challenge, but what was more important, like you were kind of alluding to, is like what you learned from it and the lessons that you can take from that and apply it to everything else that you're trying to achieve.
Yep, there's a Japanese swordsman, Miyamoto Musashi, and he wrote the Book of Five Rings. And this guy, I mean, he won like 67 sword duels, right? It's just unbelievable to read this story. But one of the things in the book that he talks about is through one thing you can learn many. And I just think that if you find that one thing, like for me or you, it's a podcast. But you learn about recording software, you learn about Skype, you learn about Zencaster, you learn about marketing, you learn about interviewing, you learn all of these other things.
Right.
And that's just what I figured out. And you can start small. You can start as small as posting every day for 30 days on LinkedIn. And the doors in my brain that opened up was just unbelievable. I mean, the content, the ideas, the interactions with people. I mean, it really opened up a lot.
Saying, and then like leads, all sorts of different levels, right? High level, small level, all important in their own ways because you need a little bit of everything, right?
Exactly. You do need a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Obviously, social media marketing and video are quite important in the work that you do to kind of break through the noise and stand out from at the crowd. So do you want to explain specifically how important video is to what you do?
Yeah, I think, so for what I do with video specifically, it's, hey, we got to get attention, right? It's just, where's the undervalued attention? Where are people not paying attention? So when you look at a channel like YouTube, there's not a lot of advertisers. Not a lot of people have taken their dollars out of television and put them into a channel like YouTube. Because there's not a lot of case studies yet, and those things are being built. Like we know that it works, but we don't quite know, okay, what is the exact revenue that we're driving from this channel? Whereas where if you think about Google's paid search, I can tell you exactly how many clicks that I can get you, how many leads that I can get you. Whereas with YouTube, we can still do that, but it's a little more variable. And that means a lot of people stay away from it. But the prices are really low for that channel. So when you think about it, it's like 3 cents for a 15-second view. It's 95% viewable, 95% audible. So I think that the fundamentals about video or any other channel, I kind of hesitated a little bit on that because you just think about it's going to change. People are going to catch up. Everybody's going to get into YouTube. My goal is to be first in line for that next channel just before it blows up, because that means I get my clients the best deals.
Right.
Prices are low enough. The masses aren't into it. and you're still getting the benefit, if you can ride with me a little bit, that I can't quite pinpoint exact revenue, but we can definitely show the right metrics, you're going to win. And so that's just the mentality I bring to my role, is just where can I figure out what other people aren't paying attention to that even might seem a little out of left field, but is effective for my clients who I care about, and I intimately understand them, their problems, and what they're trying to accomplish.
Interesting, because at the end of the day, it's about what works for the market that you're in too, right? And,
yes.
And what's going to get the, obviously, because it's results driven. At the end of the day, everyone needs to make money to stay employed, etc. It's a big cycle. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, just interesting. Is there anything else you want to add? Like, how did you learn all about video?
Yeah, so I mean, I really, the biggest thing for me to learn about video was consuming things from Google. Like, I asked for all the major stats. I could recite a lot of different stats that I won't on here that are important. But the biggest thing that I did is I ran my own video advertising ads. I've run ads on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, paid search, Bing, like YouTube, all of those things at a small scale. But that's how I learned about it, because I just got in there and I did it hands-on.
And was a lot of it through trial and error?
Yeah, big time. A lot of trial and error, and a lot of just figuring it out. And what I learned by doing that too is that, I mean, Google, there's so much information on Google and YouTube.
Oh, there's tons.
You can learn literally anything.
There's almost too much, because you're like, which
right.
is valid? Because obviously you've got one perspective, and then you've always got a counter perspective.
Very true. And that's why I think by doing, I was able to figure out the right questions to ask. So I knew when I ran into a roadblock, I had a specific thing like, how do I do this? And I go look on YouTube, and I was able to figure it out and things like that. But yeah, just getting in there and doing it and creating is what really leveled me up.
Awesome. So this is a natural pause. So we'll have a little tea fact.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so the tea fact for the episode is there are several different types of tea, including black, oolong, green, and white. But actually, they all come from the same plant, the Camellia sinensis. But the difference lies in how the leaves are treated after they are harvested. And that comes from foodl.com. So that's today's tea fact.
Very cool.
So I sometimes like to grill my guests on this. So do you have a favorite type of tea?
That's a good question. I love tea. I don't drink coffee. I'm not a big coffee guy. I would say green tea would be my favorite, but I love ginger tea. So I would say green tea and ginger tea, but you'll catch me with the chamomile tea. You'll catch me with different kinds.
So really just depends on the day.
Depends on the day, the mood, the context. Yep, absolutely.
Fantastic. So let's move a little bit away from economics and your day job, and let's kind of dive into your podcast. We'll show some of the same themes about people and marketing and promotion and all that might come up.
For sure.
So do you want to talk a little bit about how you first got started in podcasting more broadly before we talk about your specific podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the story goes, I've always felt like I wanted to do more, but I never knew what that more was. And so I started with the garage sailing. That was last May. Going to garage sales, buying stuff, flipping it on eBay. I mean, it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. I made some extra money. I took that money. I started to invest in sports cards, and then I started to write articles about it. And I was brought on to the sportscardinvestor.com. I did an interview with him over YouTube or over Skype, and it was put on YouTube just like this. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. Like, maybe I'm good at this. Maybe I can pursue it somehow. And I did a LinkedIn content challenge, which you referenced earlier. I posted on LinkedIn for 30 days straight. And just people at work were coming up to me, friends and family, like, hey, we love your content. Like, looking forward to seeing the results. Looking forward to, seeing your next post. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so after I finished that, I was like, I really I'm doing a lot, and I want to get my voice and brand out there. What's the best way for me to do that? And I thought, I'm going to start a podcast. And as I was thinking through the idea of like, well, what should the topic be? Who should my guest be? I really just thought like, well, what do I want to learn about the most?
Right.
And I wanted to learn about how people got from point A to point B, dating back like, their origin stories. How do they end up getting into this position, but unpacking it in a really practical way so that selfishly I could get some ideas for what I can do with my career, my brand, things like that, but then also to help other people. Because I'm big on the playbooks. I'm big on like, let me help, when I go back and I talk to students, like, how can I get you to understand 2 or 3 things that you can do tonight that are going to help your career?
Right.
And so had the idea, this was November, December timeframe. Come January, I booked my first guest, someone that I used to mentor, and she was kind enough to be my first guest and do it with me. And it went well. I had the worst cover photo, but I didn't care because I just wanted to get it out there, get it done.
You have a good podcasting voice, because I was listening the other day, and I really like the short segments and the guests. Interesting.
I appreciate that, and that was an evolution. So I did an episode, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people started reaching out. Hey, I want to join. Can I join? And so I did a bunch more episodes. At the time, it was How We Got Here, UVM Stories. It was about University of Vermont alumni. That gave me a little bit of social proof to reach out to some guests. That gave me a decent amount of runway. And so I did a bunch of episodes. Then I introduced the short clips, because I figured, it's young people who are listening to this. So let me pull out the 3 best pieces of advice from these podcast episodes, and they're 3-minute clips with a nice intro. I appreciate everybody hates the sound of their own voice. I do too, but I appreciate the kind comments about my voice. But that to me was like, okay, I just learned something about behavior and attention and how people consume media. Is you need to. I wanted to serve the people who want to listen to long form and people who want to listen to short form. And then I rebranded the podcast to How We Got Here Career Stories, because I was hungry to interview people outside of UVM. I had done it for maybe 15, 20 guests, I think I did. And then now I'm moving a little bit away from that and just broadening it. And one thing I'll say about that is I was honestly afraid to do that at the outset. UVM was sort of a safe, we have a mutual, connection. Right. It was a little bit of a safe space for me to try it, which is totally fine. I was able to see, can I really do this? Can I edit? Can I do this?
Trial and error again, right?
And trial and error type, exactly. And that just, doing it that way then allowed me to prepare and be ready for bigger interviews.
Fantastic. And then what's your long-term vision for the podcast? You kind of started touching on it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't actually put a ton of time into thinking of the long-term plan. A lot of people ask me that, and it's a really good question. For me right now, my goal is to be heads down and just add value for the listeners. And I also hope when I interview someone that I give a little bit of themselves back in a way that they hadn't maybe seen or understood before. And that to me right now, I think if I do that over a long enough period of time, I'll figure out what the long-term plan is.
Right. So if you really focus on giving value, doing the preparation and the research, asking the right questions to unlock that next level of answers, and it'll self-drive.
That's what I'm thinking. That's a hope. I think
that's what I think too. So.
Yeah, I love it. Focus on the process, not the outcome. And I think for me, to be honest, the most important thing that I focus on, it's not always the research. It's not always even asking the right questions. It's just unpacking what someone says in a way that a young person or an inexperienced person can understand it and take action from it. That's my biggest thing that I want to focus on.
Fantastic. And then so kind of answered about the future podcasting goals. Has there been a standout moment from the show so far? Or something that's, or this that you think about every other day, something like that?
Yeah, I just, you know what stands out to me, and it's a repetitive cycle, is just each episode I do, it feels like the best one. Seriously, I just am so humbled and grateful that people are willing to join and spend time with me. But I'm just getting so many insights, career advice that, I mean, it's just great. That's what I think about every day, is just, I cannot believe that how much I've learned from each individual person. And that just goes to show everybody has something to teach you.
Right.
Everybody does. I promise you that. No matter what walk of life or anything. And to me, it just, that's really it. It's just, I feel so connected with a diverse group of people. I think about that every day.
And that's, you literally just summed up why I do it too. It's the stories, it's the lessons you learn. No joke, and you learn something from every guest, but sometimes you learn from the people that you least expected to learn the most from.
It's so true. Because I've had people reach out to be on the show, and early on, and I thought, ooh, I don't know much about their field. I don't know much about, I don't know how this is going to apply, or it's a specific segment. And I mean, they just blew me away. And you learn that, there's one episode in particular where I interviewed an MD that pivoted into sales.
What's an MD? Just for the
yep, medical doctor. So he went. He got so he's a medical doctor, and he ended up pivoting into sales. And I was a little intimidated, because it's like, okay, you're a medical doctor. I don't know. I'm not a science person. That's just, I respect it, but I just don't know it. But you notice there's themes between different industries, positions, degrees. There's so many similarities. And I think the ability to understand those themes and pull them together and articulate them in a clear way can add value to a lot of people.
Fantastic. And then, so as we come towards the final fill-in, do you want to, what is it that you love so much about sports cards and flipping? Is it something you consider more as a hobby, and then do you get an adrenaline rush from it?
Yeah, it's definitely a hobby. I think it connects me with my childhood. I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Oh, nice.
And my mom and I, we watch every game. We text back and forth. It's something that just anchors me into my Philadelphia culture. So I'm pretty far from home. That creates a little anxiety. I have my sports cards. I'm looking at my Carson Wentz, my Miles Sanders cards. It connects you with the players and the sport. It gives you an identity. And it is just so fascinating to see the sports card market evolve. I mean, what's out there when you talk about, you've got autograph cards, but you have, pieces of a game-worn jersey in the cards. There's just so many cool things, and it is fun. It's nice to make money on the side, I'm not going to lie, right? But part of it is just practicing the skill of seeing things that other people aren't.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? You only really make the money when you're buying a card. Yep. And that really is good practice, because it's very real-time feedback. It's a very fickle market, and there's so many elements that go into it, but it really teaches me about, okay, what are people attracted to? Why do they buy it? What's the visual appeal, the players, the news, and you really start to understand how and why people invest and buy things. And I don't invest in stocks because I have not spent enough time understanding it. But a year ago from now, I would have zero clue of what to do. But now I'm like, I can see the parallels between those two things.
Awesome, fantastic.
Thank you. The hotel keeps kicking me off the Wi-Fi, so
it's all good. So what's one thing that you want to do next in your life?
One thing I want to do next. Well, one of the things that I've wanted to do was to move outside of Burlington to experience a different part of the country. So I'm actively doing that, which is very scary, but it's also really cool. I have an amazing group of friends, back at home, and
I'm sure you do.
Great career. You know what I mean? And I will say what's funny is the public speaking thing. I am officiating 2 of their weddings next year by way of my public speaking skills, which again, I'm really nervous but excited about it. And it just goes to show that public speaking can really benefit you in a lot of different ways. But yeah, I mean, I really think that's a big thing for me, is just to embrace this experience that I have before me enjoy a new place, not be, I've traveled a bunch, but just being here for the next
Right.
2.5 months and just staying in the, and leaning into it. So.
Fantastic. And then is there a piece of advice that you'd like to leave people with that you've learned from all of the trial and error that you've done so far?
Yeah, definitely. It have a growth mindset. And what I mean by that is you're not fixed in a certain position. You're not at your ceiling for writing, your ceiling for podcasting, your ceiling for this or that. Because I had that mentality for so long that if I wasn't innately good at something, I'm not going to be able to get good at it. And I've proven myself wrong countless times. So I know that if I can do it, anybody can do it. So just know that any challenge you face, anything like that, you can always learn, you can always grow. You are not in a fixed state. You can always be growing. So
fantastic. And so thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, guys. This was another episode of the Tea with Mike show. This was Jonathan, and you'll be able to watch this episode at teawithmike.com. Thanks again, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you.
It's the Tea with Mike show.